seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us, broadcasting remotely here from the capital, Little Rock, Arkansas, at the affiliate here, 101.1 The Answer Studios. So glad to be here, as always. We are building a liberty machine here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And I want to welcome to the program once again. We got Mr. Josh Waters with us. Josh, thanks for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Paul. Good to be here.
Wow. So we have by the way, folks, got a pretty jam-packed 2-hour show for you. Coming up at the bottom of the hour here, we're going to be introducing you to a man by the name of Joseph Bollinger. Now, there's a tax increase coming up, right, Josh? Is that what's going on? Potential vote for a tax increase?
Yeah, up in Benton County there, the Quorum Court has referred out in a special election tax increase to build a new courthouse up in Benton County.
Okay, and so he's going to come on and talk about that, give some information about that. We've been doing some local spotlights on different tax increases. We did one last week with the Fort Smith Marshals Museum. And by the way, we got some good feedback on that. I got some messages, people thanking us for highlighting that, because now it's a separate video, it can make its rounds and people can get more information. Then at the top of the next hour, 7:05, Senator Kim Hammer. We're going to talk a little freedom of speech about his bill on college campuses. We'll talk to Senator Kim Hammer on that. And then we got a young conservative segment. I want to introduce you to a young man by the name of Philip Sager. Talked to him earlier this week. He's going to tell us, he's in college. He's going to tell us why he's conservative and if there are any oppressive liberals at his college campus. Wonder what the answer to that's going to be. So, folks, welcome to the program. Now, we have a ton of stuff to get to, otherwise, just in terms of what the news is. At some point in the program, we have to talk about what's going on nationally with abortion and how the hatred of President Donald Trump, and really it just has to do with the fact that President Donald Trump is going to appoint a third Supreme Court justice. That is why New York has been drawn out. That is why they are now saying that third trimester abortions are the norm and are acceptable. That is now why you have Virginia, the Virginia governor. Unbelievable what he said. We'll get to those comments, we'll have a little time to do that later in the program. So definitely want to stay tuned for that. If you haven't heard yet, it's incredible how the election of Donald Trump has actually unveiled the radical left in terms of, and it really is just the left. This is where they're going. As a matter of fact, I think one of the most insightful clips that puts all of this week's news into context concerning the abortion issue is the flashback clip of President Trump, then candidate Trump, running against Hillary Clinton. And they brought this up. Chris Wallace asked Hillary about partial birth abortion. And listening to her response versus listening to President Trump's response, it really puts his characterization of her and of the left's position of wanting to rip the child out of that. Those were his words, that she and Democrats want to rip the child out from the womb the day of the birth or the day before the birth. And she said, I disagree with your characterization. Well, look what they're saying now. I mean, they're saying exactly what the president said that they are. So anyway, but the big news yesterday on a local level, if you were down here at the Marble Palace with me and Josh, has to be that the governor held a press conference yesterday, flanked by the president pro temp, Senator Jim Hendren, as well as Speaker of the House, Matthew Shepard, along with the head of the House Tax Committee, Joe Jett, and the Senate Tax Committee, Senator Jonathan Dismang, and they announced the governor's tax plan. You can find out more about this. There's a story that's already up right now at conduitnews.com if you want to be able to reference the specific details of the plan. Josh, you want to kind of go over some of the highlights, what you think really stood out to you about the governor's tax plan yesterday?
Yeah, well, I think two big things stand out. One, it's a standalone income tax plan, right? So draft legislation before was including the internet sales tax, this federal conformity measure. It wasn't even clear if the bill itself was going to be a net tax increase or decrease. What this bill does, it was filed yesterday and talked about in the press conference. It's just a standalone income tax cut. So there's no tax increases involved in it. They said they're going to try to run the internet sales tax separately. And so this bill is just an income tax cut. But big picture, $97 million in income tax cuts spread out through fiscal year 2022 over about a 2-year period. And so what it would do, it would take the top rate in Arkansas, which is currently 6.9%, right? It's the highest in the region. They showed a map showing that. We stick out like a source of thumb. I think, listeners of the show will have heard that for years.
Well, yeah,
now,
that I thought that was good. It was good to admit that, It's good to admit, listen, this is not good. Look how dark green we are on this map compared to the surrounding states. That's hard to compete if like that. So I understand, what they're trying to do at least.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. And at the end of this, over 2 years, that top rate in Arkansas will be brought down to 5.9%. And it restructures. So previously, if the people have been listening to the show, there's almost $200 million they're looking at an income tax cut plan.
Right.
They've scrapped that.
Yeah, it was like 197 million.
Yeah.
I think. Right.
So that was the 5.9 plan. Now it's just the 5.9 plan. So it's a slimmed down version of what there was before, but there's no tax increases in the measure. So 97 million net revenue loss going to the government over 2 years. The top rate is brought down to 5.9%. So most of this, will be recognized among the job creators in Arkansas. I wouldn't even say high income, the higher income based on the way the brackets are set up. And so they would see most of this. And then the middle income earners will see a slight rate reduction of 6% down to the 5.9% rate.
Right.
And so, but as we look back, of course, there's the middle income tax cut a few years ago, and then the low income tax cut last year. So this is kind of the governor's talking the final phase where, job creators are finally seeing a little bit of, relief. And so they said they're going to run the bill next week. So I think they're going to try to get this through pretty quick.
So I agree with what Josh is saying in terms of to me, the first thing you mentioned, Josh, was that this is a standalone bill. And so that is a good thing. This is going to cut the income tax, but it's not putting legislators in a position that where, let's say you did, because originally the plan was, correct me if I'm wrong, let's put the internet sales is that right? They put the internet sales tax in here as well. Is that true, Josh?
Yeah. Well, the draft legislation that came out of the tax task force and what was presented as the governor's plan in presentations to the task force included really three things that aren't in this bill. One, the internet sales tax. Two, this idea of conforming to federal tax laws in which there'd be less deductions available, and that was going to be $28 million tax increase. And then also an exemption, removing an exemption on the sale of magazines, and so that's not in this bill. So that was asked in the press conference, making sure, and they were very clear there's no tax increases in this. And then when the bill was filed, went through and read it, and there's not any tax increases. Yeah. So I think that's a win.
Well, it's a win, and it guarantees it's going to soar through. I mean, that's what I think.
So I don't think it's going to soar through because it has to get a 3/4 vote.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. Okay. Definitely through the committee process, it'll do fine. You're right. It does still have to get that 3/4. So, if it doesn't sell through, maybe they come back and then they're like, maybe there's a different bill. Who knows? We don't have a crystal ball, but
It should sail through.
It should.
76 Republicans.
It should
They don't
sail
need any
through.
Democrats
Right.
to pass
They
this.
need no Democrats in either side, right? To
I
get
think
to
they
18?
might need one in the Senate.
Okay. Well,
The way the math works out there,
paging
they might,
Larry Teague.
there you go.
Paging Larry Teague. Hello, Larry. Where are you? Yeah. Well, so I think so. I think this is going to be good, and I think that you're not okay. So last time it was so upset. There were so many Republicans who were upset. For example, when they cut they exempted military retirees, from having to pay taxes, income taxes, and they put all this other stuff. They backloaded it with all this other stuff that was hard to vote for, and you put your own party in a really hard position. That's not the case with this bill. So if you're a principled Republican, you believe in tax cuts or lower income tax, I mean, this is an easy vote for you, and that is positive. That's fantastic. So now, what comes down the pike later? I know they still want an internet sales tax. I know they still want to do something with roads, and that's a potential tax increase. I think if they refer it to the voters, then that is also a tax increase personally. So there's still a chance that, there's more revenue that's taken, or this $97 million cut to the government in funding gets made up or even offset. Maybe it ends up being revenue neutral, or maybe not. But just in terms of what we have right now after that press conference yesterday, to me, it's kind of an easy. Now, correct. What do you think, Josh? I think it's an easy bill to support by itself.
I mean, yeah, unless something changes, it's a straightforward income tax cut bill, right? And it's standing on its own merits, and these other tax increase measures will have to be voted on their own merits.
Yeah, and that's a good thing too.
Yeah, it's you've been talking about it, Paul. Let's have honest government. Let's not do what they did with the military retirees, throw in some tax increases, throw in some tax cut.
Yeah.
Call it a wash, maybe.
Yeah.
This is a straight tax cut bill for income taxes.
So I'm kind of excited.
Your point, internet sales tax, highway tax, possibly either increasing or creating new taxes on cigarettes and vaping. We still got to be on watch. This is just regarding income taxes. So.
Yeah, I heard yesterday that there's some people that want to raise the age of vaping to 21.
Leave people alone.
That's what I'm saying, man. Leave people alone. Oh, and the reason it has to do, from what I'm told, the reason that I'm telling you, this is a legitimate idea, is because there's so many high schoolers who are vaping, and there's all these stories of them finding kids passed out in the bathroom because they took too much of a hit on nicotine or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well that's a problem. Yeah, that's not good. Well, why not expel the kid for some vaping at school? Why not have stricter penalties or something like that? Why do you think that raising it would solve that problem? Kids have been smoking in high school and they're not 18 forever, and they will continue to do so. Just because we now have little, battery operated, bongs or whatever, nowadays that are easy to hide I'm sorry, technology's increased. So because technology is different and people have different delivery mechanisms to get nicotine or other chemicals in their body, we're now going to raise the vaping age to 21. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and this is kind of a recurrent thing. As technology changes, we have a more free society. Governments in every state at all levels want to try to find a way to tap into that and get some revenue in taxes.
Now, definitely, they're definitely gonna, they did that. They moved vaping over into the tobacco category, I think, several years ago, because they knew that this was the forefront, and they depend. That's a whole nother argument about how government depends on the habits of tobacco, to get that revenue. That's a whole nother situation. But anyway, folks, the headline up at conduitnews.com right now, governor announces income tax plan. This was, to me, a pleasant surprise. It really was. Standalone plan. Let's go. Let's see what happens next week. And let's cut those taxes. Let's do it. I'm ready to do this. And, when it's all said and done in April or May or whenever they get done, I am excited. I want to eat a big plate of crow. I really do, Josh. You know me. Task Farce, Mr. Task Farce over here. Like I want a net tax decrease. That's what I want, and I am excited to eat crow. I bet I can find a pretty good recipe for it too. So anyway, we're with Josh Waters. We're broadcasting from the Answer Studios in Little Rock 101.1. They're gracious enough to carry this program every morning. And we are going to take a break and come right back with more news and comment, opinion, analysis. Don't go anywhere, folks. Thanks for listening.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program. We got State Representative Mickey Gates is on the line. Mickey, how are you, sir?
Good morning. It's early.
It is. It is. I don't know. This may be the first time we've had you on with a new time slot.
It is. And, of course, as a legislator, most legislators that I know that are, they're up late reading bills and talking about bills and, responding to emails at 2:00 in the morning. And so 7 o'clock saying, yes, I'll take it. You're going, what am I saying? So
I understand. Well, hey, listen, I need to ask you before we get started on, talking about what's coming down the pike. I got to ask you about your situation. I know it's an ongoing court case. I know, it has to do with income taxes and things like that. I just want to give you a chance to respond. Were you think you were targeted at all by the state of Arkansas?
You're right. I have to be very careful what I say because
they're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, we're back here. I am attempting to get, let's see here, I'm going to the Conduit News Facebook page so I can pull up this video here and chat with you guys for a second. So you can sound off. It is facebook.com/conduit news. That's facebook.com/conduit news as I try to pull this up. Let me tell you what else happened yesterday that was a little concerning to me. So State Representative Brant Smith ran a resolution condemning CARE, an organization called, that's CARE's acronym. It stands for the Center for American Islamic Relations. You'll remember them because, well, let me tell you, like, what they tell you is that their mission is to build bridges between the Islamic world and the American world. It's a one-way bridge, though, because we're not putting any churches in Mecca anytime soon. I can tell you that right now. It's a one-way bridge, but of course, CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land trials. CARE is a way to, they funnel money to terrorist groups. They're affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. They're a very, very, very terrible, terrible, terrible group. So, State Representative Brant Smith, who has intimate knowledge of radical Islamic terrorism because he spent time in the Middle East, a great deal of time, I think 65 months. He wrote a resolution, and it was a resolution backed by the Center for Security Policy, which is Frank Gaffney's group, a really, really good group. You'll remember one of the spokespersons for that group, spokesman Colonel Paul Deckert. He's been on the program many times. Anyway, it failed to get out of committee. This was a resolution that was going to urge law enforcement to not have anything to do with CARE. See, what CARE is trying to do is they're going to law enforcement officers, and they are attempting to offer classes. Like, I don't know if they're sensitivity classes, but they're trying to go around law enforcement and reach out to them. And this was a resolution that was going to allow law enforcement to say thanks, but no thanks. There was no one in the audience that was signed up to speak for the bill. More importantly, there was no one in the audience signed up to speak against the bill. And it failed with 10 votes. It needs 11 to get out of the House. And there were a few Republicans who just didn't vote at all.
Roll call.
Yeah. That's the sound of Josh Roll Call Waters' voice. So anyway, they did a roll call vote, and well, yeah. Let me see this here. So let's see here. The yays were Rebecca Petty, Mickey Gates, Danny Watson, Jim Wooten, Cindy Crawford, Keith Slape, Jason Kelly, Brian Evans, Stu Smith, Sonia Eubanks Barker was a yes. The nays were John Walker, no surprise there, Leanne Birch, Julie Mayberry, Don Glover, Denise Garner, Jay Richardson, and Tippy McCullough. The non-voting, you had Sarah Kapp not voting. Craig Christensen didn't vote, but he wasn't there. By the way, our thoughts and prayers to Craig Christensen, because I understand he had like 80% blockage or something like that, but he's fine. He's fine. Well, I think it was actually AFib is what it was. Anyway, but he's doing good. But our thoughts and our prayers are with him and his family. And then we had a no vote from the chair of this committee, which, by the way, is Aging Children and Youth Legislative and Military Affairs. So I guess that's why they put it here. But Representative Charlene Fite did not vote. It was really perplexing to me why a bill essentially denouncing a group that is really one and the same with the terrorist organizations, but it's kind of like a front group. Why something like this couldn't pass, and it wasn't even a bill; it was just a resolution. I mean, it's not it shouldn't even been controversial at all, and yet it became controversial. I don't know if they're going to rework it or whatever, but I just found that to be really disturbing, I guess. Not really sure why that would happen. Why? I don't know what all the reasonings are for not voting or for, the chair is always the last person that gets the opportunity to vote. And so when it got to State Representative Charlene Fite, and there were already 10 yes votes, all she had to say was yeah, and she just chose not to vote, which effectively killed the bill. I was like, I don't understand what is so hard about a resolution. I mean, there was some talk about how this is none of the state legislators' business to do something like this. But if they're approaching law enforcement in other states or in Arkansas, that if they're approaching law enforcement in other states, it's only a matter of time before they approach law enforcement here if they haven't done it already. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that was kind of a painful committee to be in yesterday because of all that. Folks, we got live coverage here, live coverage of what's going on at the Marble Palace. We'll be right back in just a moment.
My attorney, I don't want to make my attorney mad. I will just say this. when you're a person trying to reduce the size of government, there are some people in government that don't want to be reduced. And, we talk about draining the swamp, and there's alligators that live in the swamp that kind of like the swamp. And, so there is pushback when you're trying to reduce what government can do and what they can't do. And sometimes those in government don't appreciate efforts to reduce government's ability to control our lives.
Yeah. Well, I think, when it's all said and done, what I'll be most interested in, Mickey, obviously is the results of the case, but also, whether or not information given by the government is reliable, or is it something that,
right.
that changes, depending on what the political climate is. And, we've seen that you wouldn't be the first if that is indeed how it ends up. You wouldn't be the first, because we got that CNH hog farm up there, and they've jumped through every hoop the government's told them to, and they still didn't get their permit. So, we're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates. Mickey, what do you see coming down the pike in this session? You got any issues that are important to you, sir?
Well, I do. We're still working. I work some with Senator Clark on reforms in DHS and child maltreatment, and just trying to reform what government can and cannot do. A lot of times as conservatives, they say, well, why'd y'all pass so many bills? Well, first of all, bills in Arkansas can only pertain to one issue. You can't have one bill that does 10 different things. So consequently, every time you want to reduce government in an area, there has to be a bill. We just passed a bill the other day that said we're reducing the cost of getting and renewing your concealed carry permit. That required a bill, and it's got to go through the process. And there was debate that it's going to take them, whatever it was, $1.5 million out of state police fund for training that they use for training their officers. Well, I think most of us are committed because we don't want to keep the cost of people being able to have the permit. We still conceal carry even if you don't have your permit. We have a right to carry law or state. So we just want to reduce the burden of government on people and shoulder that burden somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think generally that is good to reduce the fee. I want the Arkansas State Police to eventually just embrace the fact that we are a constitutional carry state and start marketing that license for reciprocity. Market it for us as a service while people travel out of state. And I think that's what the law, that's really.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to take a timeout from our coverage of what went on and what's going on at the Marble Palace during this legislative session in Little Rock. Going to take a timeout, and we're going to highlight a potential tax increase, a local tax increase. Joining us now, I have a former candidate for Justice of the Peace for Benton County. His name is Joseph Bollinger. Joseph, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, Paul. Good morning. Thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you this morning.
Yeah, thank you for wanting to be on and wanting to kind of educate the rest of the state. When we fight tax increases or we fight big government or whatever, you have examples of microcosms. So what goes on in Little Rock in many ways is a microcosm of what goes on in Washington, D.C. Likewise, what goes on in Benton County or Craighead County or anywhere, oftentimes it's a microcosm of what's going on in Little Rock. So what can you tell us about, is there a special election coming up or what's going on with the potential tax increase?
Absolutely, and you're 100% correct. This is exactly a microcosm of what you see even in Washington D.C. It's just crazy politics, and it's just to the point where we're having a special election to increase our taxes, practically in the dark of night, to where it's the week before spring break, to have something that honestly should have been on the general ballot. Actually, the third reading could have happened all the way back in May of 2018, because they had the second reading in April of 2018, and they purposely postponed it off the general election so they could have it in March.
So
which honestly,
did you say this is a sales tax increase proposal? Is that what this is?
That is correct. Yes, a sales tax proposal to build a $35 million courthouse.
To build a $35 million courthouse. So does Benton County, do they not have a courthouse now?
They do have a courthouse. It's nearly 100 years old. So I will give them that. They do have an older courthouse, and they have other court facilities spread out throughout Bentonville. So while I do understand there is a legitimate need for a new courthouse, I'm not a fan of the tax. I'm not a fan for the method they're using to try to get this tax through, via the special election. And I'm not a fan of the high expenditure of this court building. As a matter of fact, the Libertarian Party of Benton County, they proposed a plan for $15 million that would have actually satisfied all of the current needs for the county, and for roughly half the cost. And that would have been built downtown. Now, if they would have had it built over by the jail, it could have been built for even less than that.
So is the court, I'm assuming the current 100-year-old courthouse is already downtown. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Yes, they actually, originally they were talking about building over by the jail, which obviously would be the logical sense. That way you don't have to transfer inmates to downtown. But there's actually been Walton money basically incentivizing to build a downtown. Essentially, they had a carrot on a stick saying, if you build a downtown, we'll give you $3 million to put towards this project. And unless you're going to build a downtown, they're not going to give that money. So the Walton's Foundation actually said, you have to use our designer, and you have to have it downtown. It has to meet all these requirements. And it's pretty crazy to think about that, because here you are. Granted, obviously they're putting a lot of money towards this, which I'm extremely thankful for. Just due to the nature of that, because it could save taxpayers money. But at the same time, you have someone who's paying essentially 10% of the building and stipulating all the parameters for this building, where it's going to go, how it's going to look, et cetera, et cetera.
Are they saying that this sales tax increase, if it were to pass, is it temporary?
It is temporary, yes. It would be 4.5 years.
Okay. And so you're saying now, are you a libertarian, Joseph?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So you're saying that the libertarians, that they presented a plan that would require no tax increase. Is that correct?
That is correct. Right now, the county has $15 million in reserves. Now, they could have done this by spending part of the reserves, say half those reserves, and then basically having the rest of it paid for just through budgetary maneuvering. They didn't even consider our plans. We presented it to them. They didn't really consider it. They didn't look at it really the day that we presented it to them.
Okay, so let's talk about the special election itself, because regardless of where anybody were to fall on this particular issue, they're holding the election a week before spring break. Is that right?
That is correct. In the cold of March, where obviously there's a high probability of moderate probability of snow or ice or whatever kind of bad weather. Obviously people are sick, for the flu. It's just not a good time to have a special election.
I mean, they've got to know the statistics. I mean, statistically speaking, whether you have the special election, the Tuesday after 4th of July weekend, or the Tuesday before 4th of July, or the week before spring break, whatever the case may be, statistically speaking, if you have a special election for a tax increase, they have a much greater chance of getting it passed. I want to say it's 60 to 70%. Are their chances for getting it passed? The Arkansas Center for Research and Economics actually has some research on this. If they were to wait and hold it during a primary election or a general election, their chances of increasing the tax burden on the people go way down compared to the special election. So this is another example, and I hope somebody in Little Rock tries to run Dave Wallace's bill again. That would, Senator Dave Wallace, we had him on the program yesterday, that would end special elections only in the case of emergencies, like tornado comes and destroys the courthouse. Okay. But these special elections are ways to actually thwart the will of the people and take their money, when they're on vacation or they're planning a vacation.
Absolutely. And they actually, because we attend all the quorum court meetings. As a matter of fact, just I'll just throw this out there, they don't record any of these quorum court meetings. They do over Washington County, but they don't actually over Benton County. And we've asked them, many times, hey, you guys should probably record this, make it live, however you want to do it, so people can, be informed. So what we do, we just Facebook Live it and put it on our Facebook page. So, so they actually had experts come in and say, hey, you guys need to have this in a special election. You don't want to have this on the general election, because if you do, it's probably going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually, they purposely, it's not, they say, oh, we want to be able to educate the populace. The population is not stupid. The people who are voting are not stupid. And honestly, that's insulting to the voters to say that, there's too much on the ballot that you're not going to be able to pay attention to this. Because honestly, if something is a great idea, like they're saying it is, then people don't have to be tricked. They don't have to be coerced to vote for this. They can do it if it's the right thing to do, which honestly I think any discerning voter can look at this and say, this is sneaky and this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they'll vote against it.
Are you aware, Joseph, that special election reform almost became the law of the land 2 years ago? Are you aware of that?
We were one vote away from it.
Yeah.
I think we were like one vote away from it.
Okay,
yeah.
so you are aware.
Phone call at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. State representative, now Senator James Sturge, after voting for it, got up from his seat so he would kill the bill, and he got some sort of text message or something, and
pretty important text message.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I just thought I needed to remind people of that, because honestly, Benton County wouldn't be doing it wouldn't be attempting to do what it's doing if it wasn't, if we had already done this 2 years ago. This is something that this is a common sense thing, especially when you understand that these local governments are intentionally holding special elections so they have a greater chance of getting what they want. And what they're really doing is immoral. It is immoral to make those decisions, because if we are going to run ourselves or operate as a government or a society by allowing people to have a democratic say, and you are strategically placing your elections where you're going to get less of a snapshot of the opinion of the people that have to live under this new proposal, tax increase law, whatever, that is fundamentally wrong, in my opinion.
It is.
And it goes.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, you please go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just saying I absolutely agree. All right. This just by the dark kind of way of doing things, it's just not wrong. It completely goes against our system of government.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wrong.
So if people want, you say that you're trying to get some transparency with the Benton County Quorum Court. So if people want to watch what the Quorum Court does live, you said you guys are streaming it on your Facebook Live. So what Facebook page is that?
We actually, it kind of actually just depends on which Facebook page we want to put it on and who's also recording it, because, I may not be the one that's always able to make it, or maybe somebody else is making it to that. So a lot of times I put it on, I have a news site called the Feed that I'm an editor on, the Feed in Northern Arkansas. I put it on there sometimes. Sometimes we'll put it on the Benton County Libertarian page. That's somebody else is recording that. So it's kind of mixed. Once again, it's not exactly, it's not a single entity doing this. It's it's individual people. So it's kind of hard to coordinate something like that. And not everyone has equal access to the same pages as everyone else.
Yeah.
So we definitely try to do it, but like I said, it's just a political party that does it. So it's very difficult to have it organized to that level to where it's on a single page every single time.
Joseph, real quick, you think you're against this tax increase, right? You think the people of Benton County should vote it down, right?
Absolutely. I definitely think they should vote it down on March 12th. We already have some of the highest taxes in the country. It's the fourth highest sales tax in the country. We're tied with Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So it also goes completely against the Republican Party platform. Having a special election and increasing taxes, that's definitely not how Republicans are, voting to be. And that's completely against how they proclaim to be.
All right. Joseph, very well said. Joseph Bollinger, everybody. He's a former candidate for Benton County, JP. We really appreciate you coming on the program and informing us about what's going on.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
All righty. Folks, again, that was Joseph Bollinger. Man, let me tell you something. I was having this conversation the other day. Our local tax rates are out of control. I mean, They are absolutely out of control.
Yep. We have the third highest combined state and local sales taxes in the entire country.
That's insane.
The whole country, we're third highest.
And you just look where we are when it comes to economic freedom. I mean, I think there's at least an indirect, I would argue, direct correlation, Or look at what a poor state we are. Are we a poor state because we have one of the largest governments per capita? I mean, I think we are. I think it's a direct result. We spend almost $8,000 per person, and we're one of the poorest states to run our government. $8,000 per person. The states around us are spending 4 or 5, depending on if you include Texas. If you include Texas, I think it goes down to 4. If you take them out of the average, it goes up to 5. But that's still insane when we're spending almost 8. So our local taxes, though, are out of control. Like, there's got to be something done about that. Now, I was believe it or not, just coincidentally, or maybe you don't believe in coincidences like I tend not to. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was saying that they actually need to do something about that at the state level. They need to do something about these local governments and put some sort of cap on what the sales tax can be, which I think is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, the tax force actually came out with that. They had draft proposal legislation
really
to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So nothing's been filed on that, but that's something that was part of their package of recommendations, was to put a cap on sales tax at the county and city level.
Wonder what that number would be,
Ooh, I'd have to go back and pull that
No,
up.
I'm just saying, that would be up for debate,
Yeah.
which is great. See, I'm always the guy that's saying, how much is too much, right? Every time they want to raise a sales tax, which is supposed to grow, your sales taxes are supposed to grow, the more economic activity you have, the more people that visit your city or government or whatever. It doesn't need to be raised all the time unless people are just grossly mismanaging their, your money.
Well, I mean, this seems small, but it does affect people's behavior, at least affected my behavior, I can say, because I live in Fayetteville in Washington County, and I actually went and bought my computer up at the Best Buy in Rogers and Benton County rather than in Fayetteville in Washington County, because it's a slightly lower sales tax rate. It's just a 15, 20-minute drive up there, and I bought it there. And so they're getting that sales tax revenue instead of Washington County. So that's, very anecdotal, but it happens. So
no, Josh Waters sticking it to the man. That's what I say. Sticking it to the man. All right. The phone number 870-275-9799. Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll be talking with Senator Kim Hamber about freedom of speech on college campuses, because that is an issue. And also, we will be talking to, at the bottom of the next hour, I want to introduce you to a conservative young person to give you a little hopium. Philip Sager is his name. We'll talk to him as well. And we're going to get to this abortion nonsense, the left unveiling itself as being the party of murder. So we'll talk about this. In the context, it's insane. Like, they think they have the moral high ground on the wall, right? It's immoral to put up a wall to keep people who are alive. That's they can't come. That's immoral. But babies who are alive, they have the moral high ground there too, they claim. Because it's my body. It's my body, and I can do what I want to with it. It's not just your body, though. It's somebody else. And yet you have these leftists now saying, until the umbilical cord is cut, I can do whatever I want to with it. It's not an it. It's a he or she, but you can't. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. That's
controversial.
They've got the moral high ground there, too. The moral high ground there is, how dare you? How dare you conform to traditional binary standards? We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. It's Conduit News Radio. Back in a minute.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The only option they have, but
there's other states. I learned yesterday that there's other states that you can buy a permit from them and you can buy an out of state permit. You don't even have to be a resident of their state. I think there's 4 states that do that: Arizona, Florida, Virginia, and some other state. And you don't even have to. So an Arkansan could buy a Arizona concealed carry permit that's good in like 30 different states, 35 states or something. One of the things we want to do in government is, instead of everybody bearing this cost of all of the government, there's some point that you just say, why don't we see, and it's not true with every service, but there are some services of government that you just say, let those who use that service, let them, bear the burden of that.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of the things that has come down over the interim from.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So I got to find a text message thread real quick that I got last night. I can't believe this. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. So a long time ago, it might have been the first parody that we ever did. You guys have heard it. It's the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing board parodies. Have you guys heard? You guys have heard this, right? This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing board is blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I made this parody up because I thought it was, thought it was a good idea to point out that this would not be, it's satire pointing out the ridiculousness of what a lot of these licensing boards have become. It's not about public safety. Now, when it is about public safety, I'm fine with it. I think most people are fine with it to a degree, but it becomes about protection. It becomes about protecting your industry. It becomes about, well, I've already got the license, so I'm going to get mine now, and I'm going to make it harder on others that are going to come in and try to compete with me. Because if there's more competition, that's going to lower price. and be less money for me. That's bottom line what the tendency is to happen. It's a natural human tendency. It is what it is. But these licensing boards, these government agencies are not always looking out for the best interests of the people. They're looking out for their profession. That's just the way it is. Okay. So I come up with this parody called the Arkansas State Licensing Board Governing State Licensing Board, where this board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board Governing State Licensing Boards, is shaking down the Board of Cosmetology and saying you don't have a license to be a board, right? This is the point of the parody. And they're like, well, we don't need to answer to you. And eventually they capitulate and they say, you know what? Fine, we'll pay tribute to you so we can continue to shake down the rest of, society. And I made the point because I thought it would be funny, and never in my wildest dreams did I imagine someone would actually come up with the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards until Republican Senator Missy Irvin filed SB 192. Let me read to you what this bill says. An act to establish the Arkansas Council of Healthcare Professions within the Department of Health to authorize the Arkansas Council of Healthcare Professions to evaluate and provide recommendations to the General Assembly regarding scope of practice changes and for other purposes. Essentially, they want a governing body, not necessarily a licensing board, but a governing body to govern all other healthcare licensing boards. So this is specific in the healthcare industry. Let's see here. Let me read for you this part of the bill. This is incredible to me. Listen to this, okay? The director of the Department of Health or his or her designee, 2 members of the community to be appointed by the governor for a term of 3 years, and 1 member from each of the following entities: Arkansas Board of Dispensing Opticians, Arkansas Board of Examiners and Counseling, Arkansas Board of Hearing Instrument Dispensers, Arkansas Board of Podiatry Medicine, Arkansas Dietetics Licensing Board, Arkansas Minority Health Commission, the Arkansas Psychology Board, Arkansas Social Work Licensing Board, Arkansas State Board of Athletic Training, Arkansas State Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners, Nursing Board, the Pharmacy Board, Physical Therapy, Medical Board, Speech Language Pathology, the Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Counselors, the State Board of Health, State Board of Optometry. Folks, this is exactly like my parody. It's just more specific. And you know what? It's there. It's because the medical community in general is starting to be upset that there are Republicans in office who are now getting more seniority, and these Republicans are trying to increase the scope of practice to reflect other states in order to get some more professionals in here to do work and to what? Probably lower the cost of your health care. But the medical community is so resistant to reform. They are so resistant to actual reform that could make things better. And so Senator Missy Irvin has a bill that is the embodiment of a parody that was using satire to affect change. The goal was to affect change and deregulate stuff, not for somebody to actually take up the parody and make it a reality. Not that that's what she did, but it's just the way government is. We're going to be following that bill, but my goodness, I just can't believe it. Senator Kim Hammer is coming up next at 7:05. We're going to talk about freedom of speech on college campuses. We also still have Josh Waters here with us in studio, and we'll be talking to him as well later in the program. Don't go anywhere, folks. Back in a moment.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
A session was water, and I think something will come down. Senator Clark will lead a task force. But one of the things is we have some municipalities that their water systems that have been there forever is collapsing, and they have done very little to maintain it. And so when they were asked, why haven't you maintained it? Well, if we went to the vote of the people to is that the state of Arkansas pay for their broken water systems.
Let's talk
about all the cities that went ahead to their people and said, "Look, guys, we've got to pay for a new water system, and we're going to have to raise the rates." Why would the rest of the state have to help that community because its leaders were too weak to tell their residents that they had to pony up because their cost of their water had to go up because the delivery cost more? And why should the rest of the state bail them out?
Yeah. We're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates. Let's talk about roads. To tax the people more, to not tax the people more, to refer it to a vote, to not refer it to a vote. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, let's put on the table, first of all, before we say for or against, let's just say the facts. Here's the facts. Over the last 30 years, revenues have been flat. They have been flat because vehicles have become more efficient. And because they've been efficient, even though we have more drivers, the revenue is been almost flatlined. It's gone up a little bit, very little. Although the cost per mile to pave a road has gone up phenomenally. Barrel of oil was going up so high, and pavement is made out of oil products. So the cost of every mile has gone up. Labor, the state of Arkansas just voted to raise labor. Every road, every mile of every road just went up in every town, in every highway. So that means it's going to cost us more because the people said we want to pay every state employee more money because that's always happens. Anytime you raise the bottom, everybody else gets a raise on the most part. So the cost of doing business just went up. So having said that, the question is, how do we fund the state needs? Because I'm one of those people that travel that just hate a lot of our roads. I, for one, right now at this point, the question is, I think right now they're going to say, let's go to the vote of the people. I served in the quorum court in Garland County for 20 years. We, on the county level, never raised taxes in 20 years I was on the court because we just made do with what we had. Now, there was a few things that we did. For instance, when we needed a $40 million jail, we referred to the people and said, we want to build a $40 million jail. We need a tax to build it, and then we need a tax to maintain it after it's built. The building of the tax will go away once it's built. But we had had a history over 20 years of going to the people saying, would you give us this short-term tax for 4 or 5 years to raise the money when it's paid for? That tax away.
That's all right.
We did that, and when that tax went away, when that project was paid for, and so and I think when you have a history of that kind of response, I'm not prepared right now to go to the voters and say we need more money.
Okay.
Because I think personally, I think there's places that for instance, I've been one of those that have fought the expansion of Medicaid. And if we've got enough to pay the insurance premiums of a couple hundred thousand people, and we can pay their $500 a month plus insurance premiums, I think we've got some money. And I think I'm not willing to go to the voters yet and say we've done all that we can do on the state level.
Well, again, we're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates. Yeah, it's a complicated issue for sure. Definitely, got to have money. This is what drives me nuts is, roads are the one thing that everybody agrees on that we should be doing. I mean, I think,
Right.
everybody wants good roads, but not every.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. This is hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. Intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're here with Mr. Josh Waters. Josh, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Paul. Good to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So we had a good first hour, talked about the governor's standalone tax cut proposal, which is really, really positive, really, really good being standalone, meaning it straight up just cuts the income tax. You can see the podcast or the video archives of the Conduit News if you want to know more about the analysis there. And we also talked about a local potential tax increase over in Benton County. That was in the first hour. We want to start this hour by talking, though, with Senator Kim Hammer. We have him on the line. Senator Hammer, how's it going, sir?
It's a beautiful morning. Great day to be alive.
It really is. It really is. I actually can see the sunset here from the Answer Studios where we're broadcasting remotely, 101.1 The Answer. Hey, Senator Kim Hammer, tell me about freedom of speech on college campuses. Is it where you think it needs to be right now?
I don't think it's where it needs to be, and that's one of the reasons I, along with some others, have filed bills to address the issue. It's a collaborative effort among several of us. Way things work up at the Capitol, because of our bureau staff, they're not at liberty to share. Various lawmakers are working on different items just because of confidentiality clauses, attorneys, and as a result, there was 2 or 3 bills that were dropped dealing with the college free speech campus issue. I think that sets the tone that it's something that's been recognized that we need to afford our students the opportunity to be able to speak freely on college campuses without fear of retribution or punishment by administration or professors.
Isn't it strange? I just remember the university used to be a place where you assumed freedom of speech was a thing that everyone agreed with. Students agreed with it. Professors agreed with it. That's not necessarily the case now. What's happened with our universities?
I think one thing, the trend that is going on in universities, I wouldn't want to throw a blanket over all of them. I think some do a better job depending on where they're located and what their community support and also their community pressure is, around the college campuses and the, community influence on the college campuses. But there seems to be, a growing trend where universities used to be institutions that, encourage you to think, encourage you to express your opinion and your thoughts and, didn't necessarily dictate what the truth was, but, provided an educational base so that you could determine that. What I find that universities are turning into is they are turning into brainwashing sessions where even good, solid kids that come from good, solid homes that have good, solid values go to the college campuses. And what ends up happening, not with all of them, and not a blanket statement, but it is a growing, concern that they get placed into classrooms and the power of intimidation over them limits their ability to speak their thoughts freely, or they are criticized, chastised, or in some cases, I think maybe even academically punished because of, their differences of opinion, either with, the instructor, with the administration.
So there is a, growing trend. You have somebody that's, very famous in conservative circles, very famous with younger people like Ben Shapiro, and he goes to Berkeley to speak, and they burn the campus down. I mean, not completely, but, they kind of have this riot-like mentality. And so that's kind of what I'm referring to. And then, there was a case at a state in Jonesboro where Turning Point USA, this organization, Candace Edwards and what they're trying to do to get young people to, kind of disengage with this totalitarian mindset of the left and maybe think more towards a live and let live free society. They're trying to get sign people up. And that's kind of where, now I know there's a lawsuit involved now, because they basically had what a lot of people are calling the free speech zone. And I think that is, that hits home. That's not necessarily the same thing as, burning down the campus of Berkeley by any stretch of the imagination, but it's kind of in the same direction, right?
Well, the thing about universities is they are there because of taxpayer dollars, and they are there because individuals pay their tuition, their fees. If an individual pays their tuition and fees and decides to go to a college, regardless of wherever it is, that promotes or protects that type of idea, that's their personal choice. But I think where as lawmakers we get involved is representing the constituents that sent us there by large margins, or even narrow margins, doesn't matter. We're sent there to represent the interests of the people. The tax dollars should not be utilized in a educational setting, whether it's K to 12 or whether it's college for that matter, and I'll be specific, to where the left has an advantage of intimidation or excluding ideas that may be contrary to the overall mindset of that university, especially if it's leaning to the liberal side. And that's not directed at any one university. That applies to any university that allows it to happen on their campus.
So we're talking with State Representative Kim Hammer, State Senator Kim Hammer. Listen to me. I'm living in the past. So Kim, there's been a couple bills filed to try to support freedom of speech on college campuses. Which one are you behind?
I filed one that you might say took it all the way to the far right wall, and then Bob Ballinger has filed one that has also gotten to the wall. What we are doing is working together with some conservative attorneys and conservative groups, and also working with the universities, because we want it to be a collaborative effort. We want it to be, embraced as moving in the right direction. And so it is turned into a collaborative effort. And there's also, I think, another one out there. But it is a combining of all the efforts to try to get us as conservatives to the right. The one thing people need to realize, though, is that we're kind of talking in the conservative lines because, that's who we are and that's what your program's all about.
Yeah.
But if you're going to protect a conservative voice, at the same time, you allow a liberal's voice to be protected too, because it's about free speech. Yes. It's not about protecting one side or the other. It's about making sure the rules are fair and making sure the opportunities are provided. And then may the best voice win, and may the driving force drive us across the victory line. Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. I think that is certainly the principled angle to take. I will add that I think one of the reasons maybe this is so focused on speech that leans to the right in term, obviously this, like you said, is a conservative program, but increasingly those on the left want to try to silence those on the right. And so that's why we have to reaffirm, say, listen, the speech is for both sides is okay. And if it offends you, well, that's actually just part of America. We don't have a right to not be offended because somebody says something we disagree with.
Well, the one thing you will notice that separates the left from the right is you don't see anybody on the left bringing these kind of bills forward. So that tells you something right there. The left doesn't see it as a problem because right now the left has leverage and has momentum and has, rooted itself into the institutions of higher learning as well as other institutions. And so they don't want it disturbed. That's why I think you'll see resistance against anything with free speech from the left is they don't want to upset the apple cart. And that's where I think we as conservatives need to at least advance it. So when this legislative session is over, we're going to be able to look back and say, you know what, we got ground and we didn't give up ground. And that's the goal right now.
Do you have, I know you guys are still working on the bill, but do you have maybe a timeline or an estimated timeline about when this is going to appear in committee rather?
As far as appear in committee, I think the amendments that are being worked out will probably surface sometime, next week. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of making sure that we align with the Constitution because we don't want it to be, a lawsuit filed immediately. And, the goal right now is to get it done by the end of the session, not necessarily get it done by the end of the day because we want it right.
Right.
And I've joined on with Bob Ballinger. We're working together along with others, and we're working to just make sure that when this session is over, we've afforded both liberals and conservatives, a greater voice in the classroom. If I got time, can I step to another direction on this subject?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're talking about the student in the classroom and about providing the student, that opportunity to have a greater voice. It's not only about the student, but it's also the professor in the classroom who maybe is working under an administration that is trying to silence the professor, and that can go both liberal or conservative. So free speech has to be geared toward not only protecting the student's right, but also protecting the professor's right that is teaching a class and has maybe a conservative viewpoint, but is working in a predominantly liberal environment on a college campus or a school campus. So that's part of what is taking the extra time to make sure everybody's right to free speech is protected, and that creates for the best stimulation of thought processes in the classroom.
That sounds fantastic to me. Senator Kim Hammer, we appreciate the work you're doing on this bill, and keep us posted, okay?
Appreciate your show, and thank you to all your listeners that are listening. Have a great day.
All right, you too, sir. You too. He's right. It is a really great day to be alive, especially when you've got a sunrise. I mean, I'm looking at this sunrise here. It is quite gorgeous. All right, so, hey, we're going to reset. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tell you about Safe Haven baby boxes. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment. Everybody wants this program or that program or this program or that program, that's servicing not the majority of the population. So I would love to love to reprioritize and say, well, this is what we all agree the government should be doing is paying for roads.
Right.
And that'd be better.
Now, here's what most people don't. And most people don't realize that. I think Arkansas is like 4th or 7th in the nation of number of miles per paved road per person. And the reason that happened is years ago when the road department was underneath the legislature, because Arkansas has a lot of second homes for the wealthy, because we have mountains, we have streams, we have lakes. And because of that, a lot of the wealthy, a lot of legislators were those who had second homes. And when they needed their dirt road paved to their house, they would just get it taken into the state road system. And that's why we have so many roads per person.
This is Mother
Miles
Government.
per road.
My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are 2 matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program, broadcasting from the Answer Studios in Little Rock, 101.1 The Answer. We so appreciate them hosting us while we're down here trying to do this coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. One of the things that we talked about yesterday, we went live on Facebook to highlight the Arkansas Right to Life, Rose Mims, and I guess Monica Kelsey is her name, from Safe Haven Baby Boxes. There's a bill that, if passed, would actually allow fire departments to put these boxes to where people could, I know this sounds bad, abandon their babies, but do it in a safe way at a fire department. We did a Facebook Live video. I'm going to share the audio and video with those of you watching at conduitnews.com and our other digital platforms. So, Joe, whenever you're ready, go ahead and hit play. This was our coverage of this yesterday. You're going to definitely want to take a look at it. Pretty fascinating stuff.
Law, so women won't be putting babies in suitcases or on a doorstep, but they know they can go to a hospital or a law enforcement agency and soon a fire department to surrender their child, and possibly in a safe haven baby box, because amending the safe haven law will allow safe haven baby boxes in Arkansas. So I'm going to turn it over to Monica and let her demonstrate how the box works and more about the babies that have been saved. She's got this little graph she wants to share with you of the success of the Safe Haven Baby Boxes in Indiana. So, Monica Kelsey.
You guys want me to just answer questions? I know we're live right now, but you just want me to do a few things, and then you guys can.
Well, yeah. Let's look at this box. So this is a Safe Haven Baby Box, and the Senate Bill 160 by Senator Cecile Bledsoe would essentially enable these to go in fire stations. It gives people the options for this to go for people. So let's see what it would do here. You would
so
open
as soon as mom, this is actually going to be on the outside of the fire station. This is all she's going to see is this front part.
Okay, so all of this is indoors.
Yep. Basically, we cut a hole in a wall like we're putting a window in, and this box literally slides inside. So this slide is on the inside of the fire station. This is on the outside. So as soon as a mom in crisis walks up to our Safe Haven Baby Box and she opens the door, an immediate 911 call goes out. So if she shuts this door,
see what we've got. We've got a heater in here or an air conditioner on this side.
Yep.
This is what we're talking about. Now this is actually heartbreaking. I was saying this earlier as a new father, like to open it up and to see it, it's heartbreaking, or it was kind of a gut punch. But it's a lot better than abandoning the child in a dumpster or even worse. So you're saying as soon as this door opens, a 911 call goes out. And
yep, it's immediate. And then if the mom shuts the door and kind of has second thoughts and shuts it, 911 is still coming because the alarm has already been activated. So once baby is placed inside the box, a second alarm goes off. There's a sensor on the inside, and when it senses movement across, a second 911 call goes out as well. Once a baby is placed in the box, once mom shuts the door, this will lock. She will not be able to pull it back open and get her child out. She's going to have to wait for fire and medical to arrive.
And I think that's best, considering this was even being considered as an option. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we don't want someone coming up and stealing a child.
That too.
Place.
That too.
So, and then mom walks away. No questions asked. On the inside of the fire station, so this is what you would see if you're a firefighter and the alarm goes off. You're gonna, basically this is what you're gonna see. So before you even open the door, you're gonna know that there's a baby in this box. And basically you just open the door and pull out the bassinet and take it with you.
Okay, wow.
And you know, some of our babies still had the placenta still attached.
Oh my God.
So a baby in here, as a medic, you're thinking, okay, I gotta pick up the baby, and then, you know, you've got to take the placenta before you cut it. You can't just take the child. So, so we made this removable so that it would be easy to take this whole thing into the ambulance and then start working on the child at that point.
Wow.
So yeah, so these are detachable, and it just slides in there. Pretty simple.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So the bill, SB 168, and Rose, you were saying that it's going to be amended, slightly amended. Did it pass this morning? Or?
It passed in the committee, but one of the committee members had a concern about the alarms testing part of the bill. He felt it wasn't enough. I think it was 1 month.
Once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah.
And Monica started explaining their testing procedures, and he really liked them. So we're amending our bill to have the same standard that Monica uses in her boxes in Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania.
So here's another question. After this passes, presumably this is like one of the most pro-life, I think, things that you can have. Will people be able to donate? Because it doesn't mandate this go in fire departments, but could they donate to make sure their community gets one?
Well, we hope that there will be interest in fire departments, hospitals. We don't really think, and Monica can expand on that, about how you don't think women will choose law enforcement agencies as a good place for safe haven baby boxes. But certainly hospitals in Arkansas that have an interest, they would be funded by private donations. Arkansas Right to Life is not fundraising for safe haven baby boxes at this point. We do have interest from the Knights of Columbus, who Monica says have been very supportive of, because it's private donations that make these happen.
Yeah, and we get no money from the government, we get no money from the state, and the amount of support that we get is so incredibly awesome because people believe in this mission. You know, when you look about, as a pro-lifer, we don't advertise that this is pro-life or pro-choice, because truly a woman that is at this point in the pregnancy, we've already passed the pro-life issue. So at this point, it could be a child welfare issue, or it could be, you know, a pro-life issue. So we don't talk about being pro-life or pro-choice. Although as a pro-lifer, I will tell you that the more that we restrict abortion in this country, and praise God for that, these boxes are going to be used more. Because what are we doing at that point? We're not changing the culture. We're changing the laws. We're basically saying you can't do this, but these women are still going to be having sex. They're still going to have unplanned pregnancies, and what are they going to do at that point? Yeah. They're going to have to carry this child to term. And we know some people don't tell people they're pregnant. Some people don't even know they're pregnant, you know? And these are going to be pivotal in this country once we get abortion to the point where women can't just go down to Planned Parenthood on the street corner and hide it, you know?
So this is Monica Kelsey.
Monica Kelsey.
And it's Safe Haven Baby Box. Now, real quick, how did you think of this? Where did the idea come from?
I was actually in South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa, on a speaking tour. And I happened to be at the only church in Cape Town that had a baby safe. And I said, what is this and what is it used for? Wow. And they said, well, women come at night because they don't want to be seen. They feel shamed. And so we put this in our church, and now women come here at night. And I'm like, well, does this really work? And they said that they had 7 babies that year that I was there. So I come back to the States and I started looking at this, and I'm like, why doesn't the United States have this? You know, the safe haven law has been around for 18 years. Why are we still finding 150 babies dumped in our country every single year? This is absurd. And now when you look at Indiana and what Indiana has done.
So Indiana's already done it.
Indiana, yes, we passed Indiana in
all right, so yes, that's Monica Kelsey. A Safe Haven Baby Box is Really, really good stuff. Somebody on Facebook, who is it? Who said this? Dennis on Facebook wants to know if he can leave his 15-year-old in the box. Dennis, I don't think so. I can ask her, but I don't think so. And I would actually encourage all of you to go to Facebook and like Safe Haven Baby Box. I think this is an incredible idea. And honestly, it broke my heart when I opened it. When I opened the box and I saw the hospital, I don't know, what is that, a plastic tub with the baby blanket. I mean, it breaks your heart to think that anyone would do that to their child. Anyone would just leave it. But there are people that do. And it was such an amazing service to try to protect the life of the child. Back in a moment. Everybody wants this program or that program or this program or that program, that's servicing not the majority of the population. So I would love to love to reprioritize and say, well, this is what we all agree the government should be doing, is paying for roads.
Right.
And that'd be better.
Now, here's what most people don't. And most people don't realize that. I think Arkansas is like 4th or 7th in the nation of number of miles per paved road per person. And the reason that happened is years ago when the road department was underneath the legislature, because Arkansas has a lot of second homes for the wealthy, because we have mountains, we have streams, we have lakes, and because of that, a lot of the wealthy, a lot of legislators were those who had second homes. And when they needed their dirt road paved to their house, they would just get it taken into the state road system. And that's why we have so many roads per person, miles per road per person. I think we pretty much have a consensus that, yes, we need to do something. And as anything else, we govern by consensus. So there are going to be very good conservatives that are on the other side that said, okay, we believe that, and I'm fundamentally in agreement that one of the things that, and I'm not one of those that think we need to let the public vote on everything. We have a representative form of government, and in a republic, we elect people to go do a job, and don't pass everything over to the people to vote on. Mm-hmm. Go do your job, even if it's difficult.
Yeah.
So there will be people and conservatives on both sides of this issue. This is not one to say, oh, you're a liberal because you voted to raise taxes. The fact that you voted to allow the people to vote for themselves at what level they're going to be taxed, there is nothing wrong with that. I believe in that. I fundamentally believe in that. But for me, I have a hard time referring to the people unless I've done everything I could do on a state level.
Yeah.
To get to that point before we say, guys, I don't see any other alternative. When we went to the people and said we need to build a county jail, we could not afford to build a $40 million. Money just was not there.
So that kind of brings me to my last question, because I know you got to go. We're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates from District 22. So generally speaking, I'm worried that when this is all said and done in April and May, the people will be paying more money to the government than they're paying now. Even though we have income tax cuts coming, we're told, that's great. But if you cut the income tax by X and then you raise taxes elsewhere by Y more than what X is worth, to me, that's a tax increase. Mickey, what are your thoughts? Are you worried about that?
I'm always
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Josh, how you doing over there? You doing good?
I'm doing good, Paul. How are
you? Doing good. Yep, we're just monitoring things. Hey, want to remind everybody, if you want to know more about the governor's tax cut plan, and you can call it that, the governor's tax cut plan, it's up at conduitnews.com. You can find out exactly what he proposed yesterday at the press conference. We may go over it a little bit later in the program, but it is a standalone tax cut plan. There's nothing in there. There's no tax increases in there. There's no, attempt to make it revenue neutral so far in terms of just this one bill alone is a stand-alone tax cut of your income taxes, and you have to be pleased with that. You have to be so far. So I'm really, really excited about it. Let's turn now. We do these segments called Young Conservative segments, where we want to highlight someone who is younger, who is conservative. So I want to introduce you to Mr. Philip Sager is on the line. Philip, how are you, sir?
So far, I'm doing cool and groovy. How about
Good.
you?
I'm doing well. Hey, tell us how old are you? And you're in college, right? What college you go to?
Well, I'm 22 years old, and I go to Arkansas Tech University at the moment.
All right. So you're now. Are you originally from the Pope County area?
I was actually born in Louisiana, but it was like so long ago, and for such a short period of time, I just basically say I was raised in Arkansas.
Okay. So, but is that in the Russellville area, or is that somewhere else in Arkansas?
It was definitely the Russellville area. I haven't really lived anywhere besides Russellville, except for Louisiana.
Okay. All right. So, Philip, let's just dive right in. You're a conservative.
Okay.
You're a conservative. So, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be conservative?
Well, I'm generally pro-life. I don't really support the idea of aborting babies. I don't believe in heavy amounts of government. I actually prefer that the government kind of stay out of some things, but although I do believe that some of it is necessary because of, historical scenarios such as the Great Depression and stuff, I don't believe the government should continue growing as it is.
Okay. So you believe you're pro-life and you don't think that the government should be bigger than it's supposed to be. And that really is the debate, right? Like, where is that line? And I think that's different for a lot of people, but generally, let's ask you this. What do you think about social welfare programs?
Social welfare, like Social Security?
Well, Social Security, yeah, that you could talk about that, but let's just talk about I don't know, you could talk about food stamps, or we could talk about Medicaid, or things like that. I mean, what do you think about where that's the government's? A lot of people think, well, that's just the government's responsibility. A lot of people think we need safety nets, but then you also have people that say, but we need to make sure that only those people who actually need it are on it.
I see what you mean. That's actually outside of my area of expertise, and I would suggest that the government minimize and dabbling in those unless absolutely necessary. But it's hard to tell. Like you said, it's hard to tell if it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Like Medicaid and Medicare and stuff like that, they've been becoming more and more needlessly complicated. I know this because I've been trying to, keep up with my insurance plans and all that fun stuff from Obamacare and stuff. And so it's very difficult to keep track of.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. We're talking again with Philip Sager. He is a young conservative. He is a college student at Arkansas Tech. How did you're 22, so there's not a lot of conservative 22-year-olds out there. I mean, maybe there's more per capita in Arkansas, but a lot of times if you're younger, you tend to be more progressive or liberal. So how did you come to be a conservative?
Well, basically, I was kind of raised that way. I'm not saying that I've never questioned it, but I have been looking around and, seeing what other people's choices were and seeing what other conservatives were and, whether or not they were right or not. And you know what? My parents were always conservatives, and I've never had any reason to believe that it was the wrong, worst way of doing things. I do keep an eye out for when conservatives, have an idea that's not exactly fully tested, and I will consider whether or not we're all wrong. But generally speaking, I'm still on the conservative side.
Yeah, no, and I think that's good to always be willing to see, because I'm open to changing my positions on certain issues if I have new information, or new data that proves me wrong. And that's the thing. Like, as a conservative personally, I'm constantly testing my worldview depending on what happens in the world. And when it comes to big government, I've been following it for a while, and it's always, you always have the promises. Hey, we want to expand government, but this is how it's going to work, and it's going to operate. It's going to be perfect, or it's going to, there's going to be more good than bad. And almost all, I would say always. However they sell an expansion of government is not the truth in the end, whether it's cost estimates or whether it's how it's going to operate. And to date, my worldview continues to be confirmed. But I am open to changing it if for some, at some point there's, more data or different results or something like that. We're talking with, again, Philip Sager. Phil, let me ask you this. You get any pushback for being a conservative on a college campus like Arkansas Tech from professors or students?
I do, actually, quite a bit. I'm actually a Christian, and a lot of times I'll make that known, in a gentle, subtle manner, just for discussion purposes. And a lot of times the professors are actually challenged that repeatedly. Evolution is heavily taught, and I don't believe that they have absolute proof that evolution exists. And so it's one of those scenarios where Christians are, attacked for believing in creationism, and then evolution is pushed regardless of whether or not it's true. And another thing is, a lot of the students I'm around, they're a lot more liberal than I thought they would be, because I've recently been talking to a few of them, and they support a lot of ideas that I never thought that they would, especially some of the, other Christian ones. And it's like, wait, I thought y'all were Christians and that Christians normally do believe this, but evidently I was wrong.
Interesting. Well, a lot of them could be on a journey. I went on a similar journey where, I, as a Christian myself, Philip, I love how you said that. Actually, I'm a Christian. It was I don't know why I thought it was funny, but but I went on a journey, and I was more liberal in college, and what was interesting, and this is not true for all people, but my the more liberal my theology got, the more liberal my politics got. And then at some point something clicked, and my theology started to get more conservative. And as that started to happen, when I mean that specifically, let's just take, I believe the Bible literally. And so as that happens, or I try to interpret the Bible with the same hermeneutic all the way through. And so as that happens, Philip, all of a sudden my politics become more conservative. It's like kind of a complete 180, if you will. I mean, that was my experience at college as somebody who was raised to believe, more conservatively, theologically, but you kind of start listening to, I don't know, I can't really necessarily blame it on professors. I think it was just, I'll just blame it on myself. And, by the grace of God, things just kind of turn. So maybe some of your friends are going to go through that, it's a little different. After college, things get real quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know a little bit about what you mean.
Well, anyway, hey, I appreciate you coming on. It's always great to talk to a young conservative. And what are you majoring in, Philip?
Management and marketing.
Management and marketing. That's fantastic. And so you're about to graduate, I'm assuming, at 22.
And I see.
Say that again.
This is my second semester as a junior, so 1 year after this one.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Let's stay in touch, and let's maybe we'll do an interview like this again soon. And if anything ever big happens at the campus of Arkansas Tech University, like professors are promising bonus points to go vote in special elections or primaries, let me know. Okay.
I've never seen that happen, but I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Well, it did happen according to some reports. Okay. We appreciate it, Philip. Thank you so much, sir. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay. Folks, telephone number 870-275-9799. All right. What we're going to do here is we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to get into, we haven't talked national issues the entire program, but it's time, and we're going to talk abortion, and we're going to talk about how Donald Trump and the hatred of Donald Trump and the anticipation of Roe versus Wade being overturned has brought the left out, has exposed them, has unveiled them as being the party that believes in full-term abortions, as being the party that believes that you can kill a baby after it's born once you have time to think about it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is who Donald Trump said the left was back in 2016. Hillary Clinton denied it. We're going to get to all that audio, as well as the governor of Virginia and this delegate Tran and what she has to say about her bill and third trimester abortion. I mean, it started with the state of New York. Now we're going into Virginia. We have liberals that are wanting to clarify their right to kill babies because they know It's only a matter of time. Has anybody seen Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Do we still, where is she? Where is she? Will she be at the State of the Union, or will we have an empty chair come Tuesday? We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Concerned about that. I had some flack last session when I voted against the military retirement cut. And I voted against that, although I probably represent more retirees, military retirees, than any other legislator. And the reason why I did that is because while we were yelling tax cut on one end, we were raising taxes with the other hand. And I thought it was disingenuous because I just don't want to do that. I don't want to call something a tax cut, and over here, and the net effect is a tax increase. So, and sadly, I don't have a lot of confidence in DF&A when they say this is going to cost this and this is going to do that. I have little to no confidence in them because they are part of the problem because they buy whatever number they put. If they want something, they put a low number. If it's a bad number.
No pun intended.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Josh, you've been following this. You've been following the Democrat Party coming out full abortion. You've been following this.
Yeah, it's just sad for our country that the Democrat Party has gone so far to left. You had a Virginia Democrat governor yesterday, in so many words, support the idea of murdering a newborn baby, considering murdering a newborn baby if the mother and father didn't want it to be born, but it was born anyways.
Yeah, and this Virginia governor Northam, or Northam, he's isn't he like a pediatrician or something?
I think pediatric neurologist or something. He's some type of
Oh, he's probably one of these guys that's like
doctor.
secretly believes like, Well, neurologically speaking, the baby's not sentient yet, and so you doesn't know what you're taking from it. If it's ridiculous. Hey, Joe, do you have this back at the studio? Joe, do you have this? Go ahead and play this clip here. Northam on abortion bill. Infant could be delivered, and then physicians and the mother could decide if it lives. From freebeacon.com. Listen to this radio clip / video.
Made her case for lifting restrictions on third trimester abortions, as well as other restrictions now in place. And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion, even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure, and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you, first thing I would say is this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers, and this is why
advocating for infanticide, advocating for turning maternity wards into hospice. I mean, it's essentially what you're saying. Well, we're going to make the baby real comfortable, and then we're going to decide. It's incredible, Josh.
At some point, the Democrat Party is going to have to realize an unborn baby, and especially a newborn baby, is a life that must be protected. It must be protected by the laws that we have and by the Constitution that we have in this country. It cannot be seen as just an inconvenience that this mother has gone through. And I think that's, for some reason, that's the mindset is, they're so on the feminist side, they want to say, have the woman have the most rights possible, make sure there's no inconveniences. But we know that there's options out there for women in unwanted pregnancy. There's adoption. They talk about the safe haven baby boxes that, 100% anonymity, a woman can take their baby to these boxes and under the safe haven law face no legal recourse.
Yeah.
So it's just ridiculous. At some point, I would encourage people to reject the Democrat Party because this is, to my opinion, it's just an evil thing to have that type of position.
Yeah, and what are some of these Democrats in Arkansas thinking? Who are a member of the Arkansas Democrat Party and the National Party. I mean, like, what in the world is this? This is crazy stuff. Let's go to Kathy Tran. She's a delegate in Virginia's House of Delegates. Joe, if you can cue this up back home, this is starting at 25 seconds. She kind of gets cross-examined here and is trying not to admit that her bill is a third trimester abortion bill. Listen to this.
For 2 additional physicians in cases of third trimester abortions.
Delegate Tran.
Yes, sir.
How late in a pregnancy would your bill apply if a physician was simply willing to certify that the continuation of the pregnancy would impair the mental health of the woman? How late are we talking about?
So the way the suggestion that we've made in the bill is to say it's in the third trimester and at the, with the certification of the physician. So
how late in the third trimester would you be able to do that?
It's very unfortunate that our physicians, witnesses, were not able to attend today to speak specifically.
No, I'm talking about your bill. How late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman?
Or physical health.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm talking about the mental health.
So, through the third trimester. The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay. But to the end of the third trimester.
Yep. I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
So, where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she's
once again, President Donald Trump is correct. Once again, he's right. Let's go back, flashback. Chris Wallace during the debate with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Cue this up, Roe versus Wade. And Joe, whenever you're ready, go, because we're running out of time.
The justices that whoever ends up winning this election appoints could have a dramatic effect there, and that's the issue of abortion.
Right.
Mr. Trump, you're pro-life, but I want to ask you specifically, do you want the court, including the justices that you will name, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes, in fact states, a woman's right to abortion?
Well, if that would happen, because I am pro-life and I will be appointing pro-life judges, I would think that will go back to the individual states.
But I'm asking you specifically, would you like to...
If they overturned it, it'll go back to the states.
But what I'm asking you, sir, is do you want to see the court overturn? You just said you want to see the court protect the Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, I strongly support Roe v. Wade, which guarantees a constitutional right to a woman to make the most intimate, most difficult in many cases, decisions about her health care that one can imagine. And in this case, it's not only about Roe v. Wade. It is about what's happening right now in America. So many states are putting very stringent regulations on women that block them from exercising that choice, to the extent that they are defunding Planned Parenthood, which of course provides all kinds of cancer screenings and other benefits for women in our country. Donald has said he's in favor of defunding Planned Parenthood. He even supported shutting the government down to defund Planned Parenthood. I will defend Planned Parenthood. I will defend Roe v. Wade, and I will defend women's rights to make their own health care decisions. And we have come too far to have that turned back now. And indeed, he said women should be punished, that there should be some form of punishment for women who obtain abortions. And I could just not be more opposed to that kind of thinking.
I'm going to give you a chance to respond, but I want to ask you, Secretary Clinton, I want to explore how far you believe the right to abortion goes. You have been quoted as saying that the fetus has no constitutional rights. You also voted against a ban on late-term partial birth abortions. Why?
Because Roe v. Wade very clearly sets out that there can be regulations on abortion so long as the life and the health of the mother are taken into account. And when I voted as a senator, I did not think that was the case. The kinds of cases that fall at the end of pregnancy are often the most heartbreaking, painful decisions for families to make. I have met with women who, toward the end of their pregnancy, get the worst news one could get, that their health is in jeopardy if they continue to carry to term, or that something terrible has happened or just been discovered about the pregnancy. I do not think the United States government should be stepping in and making those most personal of decisions. So you can regulate, if you are doing so, with the life and the health of the mother taken into account.
Mr. Trump, your reaction, and particularly on this issue of late-term partial birth abortion.
Well, I think it's terrible. If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, And Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me. Because based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month on the final day. And that's not
President Donald Trump. Flashback to that debate was 100% correct. This is who the left is. This is who the Democratic Party is. And I can't believe that their hatred for him, their anticipation of Ruth Bader Ginsburg being replaced by a conservative, they have actually unveiled who they really are. Josh, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, a good thing in Arkansas, we might be bad on taxes, but we're the second most pro-life state. Kudos to the Republicans, executives in this state for being pro-life.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday, Arkansas. Be safe.